Step by step, Israel says it's advancing in Gaza. Newly released videos showing what the Israeli military calls an expansion in its ground operations. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says it's necessary to get rid of Hamas's military capabilities and ensure the release of more than 200 captives, both civilian and military, being held in the Gaza Strip.
The ground operation that we extended can help us bring the hostages back. That's what we promise now.
A promise that hasn't reassured relatives of those held captive or missing. They're feeling angry and anxious that their loved ones are at risk of being killed by Israel's airstrikes.
So we were very clear about that all the hostages will come back home with any kind of negotiation that done or will be done, that we want all back and we don't care what they will give for that.
During a meeting with the families, he said the escalation of bombardment through air, land and sea will force Hamas to hand over those it's holding.
If I were to say what the key is pressure. The greater the pressure, the greater the chances.
Hamas says it's willing to release all captives immediately.
We have
a large number of enemy captives, and the price of returning them is the emptying of all prisons and releasing all prisoners.
6,600 Palestinian prisoners are being held in Israeli jails. Many, including children, have been held for years without charge or trial under so-called administrative detention rules. Now Qatar, the US and Egypt are continuing to mediate the release of all captives. Many Israelis, including captives' families, say the only option is to release Palestinian prisoners. Sarah Khairat, Al Jazeera, occupied East Jerusalem.
David Desroche is a professor at the National Defense University and formerly the Pentagon's Director of Arabian Peninsula Affairs. He says Israel is not prepared for a ground invasion.
Hostages are really, really hard because it's a constraint on your freedom of action, and at the same time, usually the family members of the hostages start to make their own demands, and their demands restrict your policy actions. I think in general, Netanyahu is defaulting to his normal mode, which is security pressure, the hard line approach. But I think it is probable that the presence of the hostages has restrained him from acting as he otherwise might. There's three problems really in Netanyahu going ahead with a full-fledged ground invasion right now or 2 days ago. The first is that the hostages probably would be killed in this, either by their captors or as part of the the civilian damage that goes on. The second problem is the immense strategic damage Israel's taking around the world because, when they conduct military operations in built-up areas, you kill a large number of civilians, as your reporting has shown. And then the third problem is I just don't think the Israeli military is really prepared for this yet. I think they have to build up their numbers, their combat forces, and get their forces in, because fighting in a city is just very difficult. It consumes a lot of manpower and a lot of resources. It takes a while to have that prepared and ready to go. An invasion is a political problem, but you can invade and withdraw. If you occupy Gaza, you become responsible for the quality of life of everybody who lives there. And, you add 2 million Palestinians to the overall Israeli population, that undermines the very nature of the Israeli state. So it's a political dilemma that follows after a military dilemma. But the problem is, for Netanyahu, he has to stay in power or else he's in a little bit of trouble personally.
Make sure to subscribe to a channel to the latest news from RDZ World News.